25 miles north of Houston, Spring, Texas is a railroad town turned tourist destination at the intersection of two Union Pacific rail lines and some of Harris County's oldest roads. Before tourism took over, Spring was economically decrepit with a population in freefall, and its future was in the balance. Let's follow Spring's path from this dying railroad town to a hub of weekend activity, drawing visitors from across the region. The settlement of Spring dates back to 1838 when a trading post was established on Spring Creek, and by 1840 the town had grown to 150 residents. Gus Bayer and Carl Wunschie were among the early settlers whose names still appear across the town, and prior to the establishment of the railroad, Spring's economy was based on sugarcane and cotton. The Great Northern and International Railroad came through Spring in 1871 and opened up an entire new set of opportunities for the town. The years after the railroad added gristmills, sawmills, cotton gins, and churches and schools to serve the growing populace. The boom reinvigorated when the railroad line was linked to Fort Worth in 1903, adding a roundhouse and switchyard in Spring, and employing hundreds to work in the rail yard. By 1910, Spring had grown to 1,200, although its fortunes were soon to be reversed. The railroad relocated Spring's roundhouse and switchyard to Houston in 1923, and Spring entered decades of decline following. It wasn't until Houston's suburban growth spread north that Old Town Spring began to form. As Spring blew past its previous peak population of 1,200, the historic homes and stores in the Old Town were slowly being revitalized and becoming a destination. The Old Town Spring Association formed in 1980 dedicated to the historic district and promoted investment in the heart of this now burgeoning suburb. Once Old Town Spring was established as a kitschy historic destination, the growth of the town center expanded. Many historic buildings were moved to Old Town Spring, a place where they would be celebrated rather than face the wrecking ball. In larger numbers, new buildings were constructed to serve as shops and restaurants, adhering to the town's traditional feel to varying degrees. Some of the buildings are completely out of place. That being said, as you walk among the narrow streets and brick-laid sidewalks here, it can be easy to forget you're surrounded by one of the most sprawling metropolises in the country. The most well-known preserved building is the Wunschie Brothers Saloon, located right across from the railroad tracks and originally opened in 1902. During the rail yard days, Wunschie's served as a hotel and brothel, a far cry from the family-friendly vibe the town holds today. Across the original blocks of Spring, old banks and houses now house antique shops and restaurants. A relocated caboose car sits along one of the town's main streets. Although the rail yard is long gone, trains still run on the tracks at the edge of Old Town Spring, a reminder of the town's 150-year rail history. In Metro Houston, a city infamous for paving over its history, Old Town Spring remains an amped-up version of what a small town could be. A part historic, part fabricated illustration of the all-American town hiding in the sprawling suburbs. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel and join me on the next adventure.